Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We're back again with more Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. And this time I want to get into the achievements that require you to be at core level or above when you're defeating a particular boss. I have started my Azada playthrough, and as I've mentioned several times before, this is the playthrough where I will finally get through the game on core, and I figured we might as well do some of these guides while we're at it. So this first one is about the first boss that you would encounter, the War Elemental in the prologue, which if you defeat it at core level or above, will unlock the achievement Your First Big Enemy. Let's get into it. So first and foremost, I recommend that going through this door and facing that enemy is the last thing that you should do in the prologue, which means you should do all of the shield maze beforehand. And you'll know you're at the end of the content when there's an argument between Windewog and Lan about which one you should be taking into the party. Once you have gotten through all of the content, you're going to pick up a ton of things that will assist you in this fight. So, looking at these characters one by one, first starting with the Azada, which in my playthrough is a cross-blooded sorcerer. The only buff he has is Bless. I could put mage armor on him, but honestly he's going to be all the way in the back, and if the elemental reaches him, that probably means the fight is a bust and I'm going to have to restart it anyway. So don't put any buffs on him. The only gear he really has as well is engraved lucky bracers. Of course, I'm not far enough into the game to get better mage armors. He does have scrolls of magic missile because they are effective against the elemental, so that'll be a way for him to do some decent damage. But he also has probably the most important spell for this fight, which is Grease. The ice elemental, as you'll see, is actually very susceptible to grease, and so you can use this as a way to completely disable it. And since he's crossbred sorcerer, he's got 5 uses for grease. So I would also recommend that you rest right before this battle to make sure you have the full use of everything that's at your disposal. Then next up is Sela. So I did find some half plate armor, which is better than the armor that she starts out with, and then she's also got a cloak of resistance. She has this ring of protection, but it's actually overshadowed by Shield of Faith, which you should be able to find a couple of scrolls for it in the shield maze, and Sela is capable of casting those scrolls. In addition to that, I put on effortless armor, which is going to help her with her speed and check penalty. Not really a big deal in this fight, but I figured I added on anyway. She's also the one you can use to cast scrolls of bless, so I did that. She has Holy Strike. I think she might have gotten that because I put one slot of War Priest on her, so I go ahead and use that as well. And then I did find a scroll of heroism, so my Azada was able to cast that on her, help boost her up some. And then there were potions that gave her bull strength, bark skin, enlarged person, bear's endurance, and blur. I'd recommend that you stick all of those on her. It's really going to help with the protection that she has. Next up is Camellia. I found the Crypt Raiders armor, which is going to help her out a little bit. And then from there, she mostly gets the same series of buffs that Sela has, except instead of enlarged person, you're going to want to use reduced person, but otherwise Shield of Faith, bear's endurance, blur, she gets all the same stuff. I did find enough where I was able to put these buffs on both parties, and as you can see, it's going to push her AC up to 27. It'll be very, very difficult, if not impossible, for the elemental to be able to break through that AC. And you can also see that I picked up the Ice Plant Hex, which is going to give her a +2 natural armor bonus as well. So she's great to have in this early act. No buffs on Lan. I did give him 1 level of Sacred Huntsmaster, which allows him to choose a pet. I chose the boar because, in my opinion, the boar is the best pet for defense. I don't plan to use Lan long term. I just want to have him here until Arusha Lake comes around. And so having the boar allows me to get a little bit more survivability for this duration of time that Lan is in the party. And then I also found a composite longbow. I don't think there's a +1 longbow anywhere in the prologue. So you've just got to find a masterwork or composite one and then roll with that. Because we've taken one level into Sacred Huntsmaster, he's really not as good of an archer as it could be. So you can easily have Windwalk in this slot, who will probably be a little bit better at doing damage, but have less survivability for the team because, of course, you're not going to have a boar. Or you can have land in here for the additional survivability. It doesn't matter either way, the fight is still doable. And then finally we have the boar, which, as you can see, with the frontline buffs that I already mentioned, mage armor, blur, bless, etc., it has an armor class of 29, which is very, very nice. Again, extremely difficult for the water elemental to be able to hit through that. I had a potion of haste, but for some reason, it looks like it didn't, it didn't apply to the entire team. So looks like that potion, it only applied to the board itself, which is fine. I want it to be running out first and doing the most damage that it can. And that to me is the gambit of potions and scrolls that you can put on your team that is really, really going to help in this fight. Okay, so now that we're in the room with the water elemental, let's go ahead and take a look at it. And as you can see, it's got low intelligence, decent dexterity, but its strength is definitely massive for this time in the game. It's immune to sleep, paralyzed, and stunned, but it's not immune to being knocked down. So that's part of the reason why grease is so useful if you can actually hit it. Because as you can see, it only has a +8 to its reflex defense, which is what you use to determine whether or not grease is going to hit. So to kick off this battle, I definitely recommend you go ahead and turn on turn-based mode so that you can make sure every move counts. And anytime you're in turn-based mode, I would recommend you go ahead and use your archer. Starting out the fight with your archer, great idea. Let's go ahead and hit him. Land is going to miss. Obviously, again, he's not as good an archer as he could be at this time. But in exchange for that, you're going to get better survivability. Now it comes to my sorcerer. And hey, we can go ahead and use grease. And unfortunately, the reflex saving throw succeeded. So the difficulty is 15, and it's got a modifier of 8. So obviously, it's not impossible for it to be able to resist, but if it gets a bad roll, you could go ahead and knock it down. So we'll definitely try that again. Now it's Camillea's turn. We actually should have done this earlier. She has Battle Spirit, which is going to give you a morale bonus on attack and damage. We'll definitely take that. It's not going to do anything for Seela since she already has Heroism, but the rest of them will benefit from it. And then she's also going to turn on her Spirit Weapon Enhancement and move a little bit closer, and then that's all she can do. Next up is the sorcerer again. We'll go ahead and give grease another try. Put it behind so that we try to ensure that it's not affecting our party members. And once again, the elemental is being able to do a reflex saving throw. Unfortunate, but not the end of the world. All right, now Seela can finally attack. And she hits for 21 damage. Also, we gave her the Marching Terror weapon, which is the weapon that you pick up from the boss at the end of this level. I gave Seela Weapon Focus Glaive because I love that Marching Terror weapon and use it the entirety of Act 1. So that helps her to be able to hit this enemy as well. All right, so he tries to hit Camellia. So he's got an attack bonus of 12. And he rolled an 11, but which only gives him 23. So he needs to roll at least a 15 in order to be able to hit Camellia, and at least, what, a 17 in order to be able to hit the boar. Not impossible, of course, but their defense is very, very solid against this creature. Now the boar can hit twice. I'm sorry, you definitely want to go ahead and turn on fighting defensively, which is actually going to probably help the boar even more now that I think about it. And that's probably also, though, going to cause the boar to miss. So technically, actually, since it has an AC of 29, even without fighting defensively, you could justify taking this off and just trying to attack it regularly on core. I don't know how that would work on hard or unfair. So she was able to hit the water elemental, but she did 0 damage because it was just 3 piercing damage, and then the water elemental was able to reduce it to 0. which is all fine because, again, a lot of why she's here is for defense. The ice elemental is not going to just focus on one person. If we just had the boar up here, it would probably go around and start attacking our back line. By having 3 tanks, it helps to ensure that Lan and my Azada are safe. And now she does a regular hit, does 15 damage. Very nice. Now my Azada is going to go ahead and be able to attack, and we're going to use the Scroll of Magic Missile, and it does 3 damage. Not much, every little bit counts. Lan has done 7 damage finally, and does 7 damage again. Wow, 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 look at Lan showing up. Okay. Then next up is Seela. Oh, keep in mind that this Smite Evil is useless against the Elemental because the Elemental is neutral. It's a neutral outsider. So you've got to fight this creature straight up. And Seela does 9 damage to him. And okay, so the Elemental's reflex saving throw finally failed. And so now Grease has caused it to be prone. Seela's going to get an opportunity. And unfortunately she misses. Now, because the water elemental was prone, when it finally does have a reflex save that's high enough for it to stand up, everybody who's right beside it gets an attack of opportunity. And if you had Snapshot, if Lan had Snapshot and was closer, he would probably get an attack of opportunity as well. All of them took a shot, and looks like Mr. Pig hit 4 damage, which finally brought the water elemental down. And so as you can see, that was relatively painless. We used up a lot of our posters and scrolls, but this is all stuff that you can buy again, loot again. It's not in any way, shape, form, or fashion stuff that you should be hanging on to. And by doing that, you're going to make that fight relatively systematic. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like down below, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.